Hello friends. So now we're going to discuss something important in GST with regard to aggregate turnover. So as we know, what is aggregate turnover in GST? In GST, aggregate turnover includes the taxable supply, exempted supply, zero-rated supply, export, services or goods. So if we consider, so in these all supplies need to be taken care like tax is not part of turnover. But now the main concern here comes. The main important part while taking the registration, what we do, we check the turnover, whether the person is crossing the threshold limit or not. If the entity is not crossing the threshold limit, then we are not required to take GST registration. Now the department has given the definition of aggregate turnover. The turnover, if exceeds 10 lakh or 20 lakh or 40 lakh, as like as the case may be in case of services or in case of goods. If this limit exceeds, then we have to go for registration. Now the thing is that what if we exclude the exempt supply? Then can we save many persons or many entities from unnecessary compliances? Yes, exactly. So for the same only what happened, ICAI has given their concept note, which we are going to discuss now. So I'll quickly share my screen with you all. Yes, guys. So as you can see here, concept note on aggregate turnover under GST. This concept note has been given by ICAI in 2022. So, still there is no amendment in aggregate turnover definition. So we are requesting, like, it's a great concept and a great recommendation from ICAI to change these all things. We'll quickly understand. So first of all, the term aggregate turnover is defined in clause 6 of section 2, which says aggregate turnover means the aggregate value of all taxable supply. So all taxable supply, excluding the RCM supply, inward supply which attract RCM, leave it. So we'll again read the definition. Aggregate turnover means aggregate value of all taxable supply, then taxable supply, exempt supply, export of goods or services or both, and the interstate supply of persons having the same permanent account number to be computed on all India basis but exclude CGST, SGST, IGST, UTGST and cess. So tax को exclude कर दो, otherwise all these things comes under aggregate turnover. Now, why we need the aggregate turnover definition here? Aggregate turnover we are checking while obtaining the registration. So these are the threshold limit for state-wise. For example, Manipur, Tripura, Nagaland, Mizoram. If any person dealing in only in goods, 10 lakh is the limit. If person is dealing in exclusively in supply of services, 10 lakh is the limit. For both goods and services, 10 lakh is the limit. If a person is having the entity in Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, or Telangana, in that case, if dealing in only goods, 20 lakh is the limit. If dealing in supply services, 20 lakh is the limit, or in both, 20 lakh is the limit. In other states, if a person is dealing only in exclusively in goods, 40 lakh is the limit. If a person is dealing in supply of services exclusively, 20 lakh is the limit. And if a person is dealing in both goods and supply in services, in that case, 20 lakh is the limit. So now, why we are discussing this point? A person like here, when we are checking the threshold limit, we have to include all the supplies, either whether it's taxable, exempted, nil rated, export, whatever. We have to include it all on aggregate basis on the same permanent account number, that is a PAN card. And if it is exceeding this limit, we have to obtain the registration. Now, why ICAI is seeking the amendment in this particular section? Thus, for the computing the turnover threshold of rupees 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 40 lakh for obtaining registration, the value of exempt supply made by supplier is also taken into account. Inclusion of exempt supply in aggregate turnover is causing genuine hardship to the suppliers whose primary services are exempt but who make taxable supplies once in a while or as an exception to their routine business operations. So it is a genuine hardship to the suppliers who are mainly dealing in exempt supply. For example, farmers, schools, hospitals. For them, it is a very like unnecessary, causing them to obtain the registration and comply with the law. So it is somewhere affecting the ease of doing business as well. So in that case, what we supposed to do to illustrate the education to just for the example, ICAI has given an example. For example, education service provided by school are exempt from levy of GST. Correct. Like if schools are providing education service, these services are exempted from GST. But in the same way, we should not understand if a private coaching is providing services, those services are taxable. So here, schools are providing education service which are totally exempted. So it is their main business, like routine supply. Now, what will happen? The schools might be having some magazines, purchasing some magazines, books, or newspapers. So they might have to sell like Raddi we say. Raddi unko sell karna padega again. So when they sell it, it comes under goods. It's not a service. It's not education service. So now this for sell of the like scrap furniture or scrap books, magazines. So these all sales comes under taxable supply because we cannot say supply of education service and sell of these scrap furniture is a composite supply. So it's not a composite supply. In that case, what will happen? Just because of this once in a while activity, they have to go for registration because now this is the main supply is exempt and this is the what we can say the supplementary or once in a while this supply is taxable in GST law. That is why they need to go for GST registration. So it is a genuine hardship to them. Same like this, hospitals or charitable entities or worship, like for example temples, we can say these all are facing the same issue. Now, this issue can be suitably addressed by removing the value of exempt supplies from the definition of aggregate turnover. So, from the aggregate turnover, if we remove the word exempt turnover or if we remove the exempt supplies, in that case, we can we can provide a the department can provide a ease of doing business to these all entities. Now, what happened? A detailed study has been done over the for comparing with the other countries who are having same GST or taxation laws. So when we see other countries, for example, EU VAT, UK VAT, Australia GST, Singapore GST, Sri Lanka VAT, New Zealand GST, they clearly shows the value of exempt supply. They do not include while going for the registration. When they check for registration eligibility or determine the registration eligibility, that time they do not consider exempt supply as a part of aggregate turnover in these all countries. So why can't India opt the same thing? So the inclusion of exempt turnover in aggregate turnover, it's unique in India only. So this is like we can say again a hardship in India only, not in other countries. On the other hand, the undue burden of compliances which the supplier has to undertake on account of such inclusion adversely affect the government's objective of enhancing the ease of doing business. As we discussed earlier, like it is not providing any ease of doing business to them. It is a genuine hardship with them. They had to unnecessarily comply with the all law. Then why see first in the if I say in other words, on in public you are saying that we are exempting these and these hospitals, schools are not liable to pay any tax over this over the supplies or they are not required to comply with GST law. But again, on the other part, we are saying that just because they made a simple or a one-time activity they have done for their scrap and everything, they have to go for complying GST law. They have to go for all return filing. They have to go for so to remove these hardships. Definitely, the amendment should be brought in section for aggregate turnover. Next we go. Now the main part, what ICAI has recommended to GST department or CBIC. First recommendation, taking cue from international best practices, the definition of aggregate turnover to be amended to exclude the value of exempt supply therefrom. Best approach. This is the first priority should be going. Second priority, if registration be not required for the suppliers whose value of taxable supply is up to 10% of value of exempt supply, or if the taxable supply is result of one-time event, etc. So like we discussed earlier, the school example, same in the hospital also it might be, where the main supplies are exempt supply. In that case, what the entity can do, they can decide if their taxable supply is up to 10% of the total exempt supply. In that case, they should not go for registration. Second, if any supply, taxable supply, which is resulting a one-time event or a two-time event, like very rarely, that case, department can specifically ask them not to go for registration. The third recommendation made by ICAI, an explanation to be inserted in section 22 subsection 1 of CGST 2017. This section says about registration under GST. So there should be a specific explanation should be there to exclude the exempt turnover. Same if we refer section 10, which says about composite taxpayer. So for them, they're specifically defined that exempt supply should not be considered under the limit of 1.5 CR for them, 1.5 or 75 lakh, whatever the case may be as per the state wise. So the same explanation can be inserted in section 22 subsection 1 of the CGST. So these are the three recommendations made by ICAI, and I think these are the best practice department can follow, and it can improve the ease of doing business, and it can make the GST law simple and taxpayer friendly. So I hope department or CBIC takes into these concept notes the recommendation made by ICAI into action, and this amend it as soon as possible, so that unnecessary no person or no taxpayer need to face the hardship for filing and complying with the law. As we all know, GST is not a simple thing to follow in India. It is very complicated to follow in India because there are a lot of amendments keep on coming, and to catch on the supplier part and the receiver part, there is a big, like we can say, not a good reconciliation as of now. That is why what happening, like department is what they are doing. If they're able to catch supplier, they catch supplier. If they're able to catch receiver, they catch a recipient. Like there is no permanent solution. Ki, okay, in this case we should go to supplier only, or in this case we should go to recipient only. Like for example, ITC or bogus form registration. So in these cases, department is facing a lot of issues, and they are unnecessary, like we can say, providing a hardship to entities as well. So this is the best recommendation. Thank you so much. Hope for the department or CBIC takes into action as soon as possible. Thank you.